boundary isn't saying you have to do exactly what I want you to do, or I have to have things my way. What a boundary is saying I'm comfortable with this and I'm not comfortable with that. It's very much about how you feel in a given situation. So I'm going to take a scenario in which we have a friend that makes a racist joke. So if we're going to follow a boundary setting sequence from here, the friend makes the joke and you first set a consequence. I'm feeling uncomfortable with that joke, so I'm going to go outside. And this action of yours allows the other person to make a decision. Either they can apologize and you move on, or they can continue making these jokes, but you are no longer involved because you have gone outside. Okay. So now, when we set boundaries, we can fall into one or two categories when they're unhealthy. So the first category is being overly controlling. You want to shout the other person down, or you're a bit aggressive. You didn't enjoy the joke, so therefore you feel that you need to yell at them or to physically hurt them. The other one that you can take is a point of guilt tripping, to make them feel bad so that they don't do it again. So you say, you know how it makes me feel, and you're such a terrible person if you ever think you can say those things again, and. The last one here under controlling other people I have is revenge. So if someone does something that you don't like and makes you feel uncomfortable, you feel justified in harming them to make them feel uncomfortable. And then it becomes a bit of a cycle, because when you want revenge, nothing ever really satisfies the need here, which was just to feel comfortable in the environment. The other category of unhealthy boundary setting is being too soft. When you're allowing people to put you in situations or to do things that make you feel uncomfortable, but you don't feel able to speak up about it. So if you've gone out and someone says something to you that you don't like, and then you kind of whisper under your breath, I don't like what you did, and they don't hear you, that's not allowing them to understand that you've set a boundary, because you're quite literally not being loud enough. Then we have over-justification. When you feel uncomfortable, you feel like you have to justify why you feel uncomfortable. You know, if someone asks you to go to a party on the weekend and you go, oh, I can't go this weekend because I have exams and I need to walk the dogs and I need to do this and that and the next thing, it can kind of give a bad impression, but it's also not allowing you to set a boundary. So when you're in a situation, part of this is you intellectualizing your emotions. You kind of feel like you need a reason to feel uncomfortable because you don't accept that reason in yourself. Perhaps you feel like you're spoiling the fun if you say no to going to the party. Or you shouldn't feel a certain way because you feel like there's an obligation you need to fulfill. But be aware that you do not need a reason to feel uncomfortable. You can feel uncomfortable with many things, and it's perfectly fine and normal as a human being to feel uncomfortable. Right, then being too ambiguous. So someone asks you to go with them to walk the dogs. And you're like, yeah, sure, maybe, perhaps this weekend I might have time, but you know how it is with my mom, and you're not telling them very clearly whether you want to go or not go. You're not saying yes, but you're not saying no. It is so much better for you to either say yes or no in a situation. If you need to check your schedule, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that, but saying yes, maybe if I have the time, and maybe if I have this or if I have that, the other person's not aware of your life. They can't see into the future to see when you have the time or space or energy. You can also say, hey, look, right now I don't feel like it, but if I do, I will let you know. You can have that as an answer. But so long as you make it clear, you are able to set a very good, healthy boundary. This last one is moving the goalposts. So what you agreed to in the beginning, maybe let's take another example. You want to try some flavors of ice cream. On your mind, you thought that you would try 1 or 2, and now all of a sudden your friends want you to try 5, 6, 7, 8, and you're eating it, but you're not feeling comfortable, and they just keep making it more and more and more and more. You're not allowing yourself to set the limits on where your boundaries are. You're allowing them to be pushed. The goalposts keep moving and moving and moving. And that's not very good. That allows for people to take advantage of you very, very easily. Okay. So now we've gone over what unhealthy boundary setting looks like. We're going to move on to what healthy boundary setting looks like. So I said this a bit earlier, but you do not need a reason to feel or express discomfort. If something doesn't make you happy, it just doesn't make you happy. You don't need a reason beyond that. It's important to be very direct and clear. I don't feel comfortable with that. Or I don't like this. Or I like that and I feel comfortable with that. It's very easy to just be a bit more direct and in touch with your emotions with this. So this other point here, oftentimes when we set a boundary, we don't realize we're setting them for the first part, but we tend to attack the other person. Let's say you decided that you wanted to order takeout and your partner was already ahead of you and they ordered, Chinese. And you go, you never know what I want to eat. You got this Chinese. You didn't consult me first. You did it wrong. You always do it wrong. That's not good communication on your boundaries. That's going, oh, I would have really appreciated it if you consulted me first. I feel like you making that decision without me made me uncomfortable. So it's not putting judgment on the other person. You're not blaming them for their actions. You're saying what you feel. That's very important in communication. It allows for you to put the line down and say, I like this, I don't like that, and give them the choice to adjust their behavior. So in the situation where you've got the wrong takeout order, they can go, oh, sorry, I didn't know that it made you feel this way. Next time I will consult you. So now you can also, with this expression of how I feel, you can see how someone else is going to respond to it. It's a very healthy dynamic if they go, okay, you don't like this. What do you like? Or how can we fix this? Versus, well, you're always just like this and you're never fun, blah, 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 blah. You can see that the first example is a lot healthier than the second example. So boundaries are felt in the body. They're very much just a feeling and acting on that feeling and allowing other people to also act on that feeling. Okay, so we discussed earlier about how we set unhealthy boundaries. These ways in which we react to the boundaries, whether we blame someone else, control them, guilt trip them, they tend to come from a belief that we have. And when we're not setting boundaries, we can have some boundary myths, I will say it like that, where we think that setting boundaries is inherently bad. That is not true. So the first one I have here is people won't accept me if I say no. If you go to an event and you don't want to stay there very long and you say, no, I don't want an extra drink, or no, I don't want to eat something, you're not rejecting the other person, and they're not going to reject you based on what you eat or drink or do. When you're in a friend group, you're accepted for who you are and not what you like or don't like. Those are very different things. So this next one here goes into the needing valid reasons to have a boundaries, where you feel like you're not going to have them respected, and so you feel that you need to have a reason for them to accept it. If you come from a very difficult upbringing in a household where you feel like you're constantly invalidated, this can develop. But when you come to a more healthy space with interactions with people that are not going to be overbearing and crossing your boundaries, you don't need to give them reasons. You don't have to specify anything in a specific way in order to set a boundary. So going back to a very overbearing parents, or even in a workplace where you don't feel you can speak up, they will tell you that your boundaries are a sign of disobedience, and that is not true. Your boundaries are a sign of things that you feel okay with or don't feel okay with. It has got nothing to do with the other person at all. And so there is no need to feel like you're being bad or not good if you decide to cut it off. If they want something from you and you don't give it, that is not being disobedient. That is following your own intuition, your own feelings. So I have here as well, if I set boundaries, I will be hurt by others. And to an extent, this can be true. Oh dear, I'm just going to fetch my charger. My battery's low. Give me a second. So sorry. Is if I set boundaries, I will hurt other people. Now, when we don't have very good, strong boundaries, we tend to do a lot of things for other people that we don't necessarily want to do. And it can feel like you're hurting them by dropping the responsibilities that you've taken on for them. But it can actually help someone else if they are responsible for their own things and you're not constantly covering for them all the time. Having a healthy boundary does not hurt someone else. They decide whether or not they want to be hurt by your actions. And again, we feed back into the strength and health of a relationship if they cannot respect how you feel. Okay. So, now, how do we respond to someone else setting a boundary? Oftentimes, we can take boundary setting very personally. You invite someone over and they tell you no. You can maybe feel that this is a no as in a rejection of you, like they don't want your company, so they're not interested in you, and. But that's not what they're saying. They're saying, no, I just don't feel like going out. Or going to your place. Maybe they don't want to see your house and they wanted to go out somewhere else, or they're very busy that week. It's not a personal rejection. They're saying no to whatever your request was, or whatever you're engaging with. If they don't want to eat peanut sauce, you don't have to make them eat peanut sauce. It's not rejecting you and your care and how much energy you put into the dish. They just don't enjoy eating that. So if someone tells you no, and you have a lot of these intrusive thoughts, and maybe you're taking it a bit personally, maybe you should try asking some questions. Like if they don't want to go to your house, you go, oh, okay, that's I'm bummed about that. Can I ask why you don't want to come? And then you can get clarity on why they don't want to go, or why they don't like a specific thing. And the other point of this is sometimes maybe the specific arrangement that you have made is what they don't like, versus completely rejecting everything. Maybe they didn't want to go to your house on Saturday because they don't have time, but they do on Sunday. You don't know until you ask for clarification, like, oh, okay, if you're not able to come this week, what about next week? Or would you prefer to go out somewhere else? And in the end, when they say no to something, how much does it really affect you? If you want to play a specific music on the radio in the office space, but they don't like it, you could put your headphones in. You don't have to make everyone else hear it. If it doesn't really impact you personally when someone else says no to something, it can feel like it does, but honestly, most of the time, it says more about what they like and what they don't like, and nothing really about you. So approach these situations with curiosity. Have a bit more of an open mind, and listen to what the other person is telling you on what they feel is comfortable or uncomfortable. It's better to correct your own assumptions so that you don't end up with resentment in the long term, and so that you don't have all these negative emotions spewing and spilling over when you misinterpreted a situation. Okay, so this is a very difficult topic for me to talk about, but we live in a modern world where it's not always safe to be outside, out and about, in the clubs, at a party. And it's so important to not only check in with yourself, but with other people as well. Drink spiking happens very, very often, especially in more countries than in others. But if someone feels uncomfortable around people, explore that and maybe move away. If someone goes to the bathroom and they say, watch my drink for me, don't put the drink on the counter and wait for them to come back. They gave you their cup for safety purposes, and it's good to just be aware of it. I cannot tell you how many times, and this is more so with my male friends than my female friends, but when I ask them to look after my drinks, they will put it in the corner, ignore it, and when I come back, I ask where it is. They're like, it's in the corner. I don't know if it's safe for me to continue drinking or not, because no one has been actively ensuring my safety. So if you're in a crowd and you feel it's getting too loud, too aggressive, you are always allowed to leave early. And this also extends to when you're very intimate. You can stop halfway. You don't have to commit to the full thing. So even if you're just not enjoying the vibe or the music, you can leave. You don't need to stay. If you think that you're ruining the fun by leaving, well, how can you be having fun if you're not enjoying it? So it's always important to keep in mind how you're feeling and assess the situation, and know that you don't have to be in a situation you don't feel comfortable in. So the other thing here is the way you stay safe is by being awkward. If someone is being rude or pushy, or they want to go further than you want to go, being awkward is better than putting yourself in harm's way. So if someone makes a joke that you don't like and you say something about it, it might bring the mood down, but you've set a clear boundary. If you were having like a very good intimate time and you were kissing and holding hands, and then now all of a sudden you want to do more, but you're not sure if they brought protection with them, but you feel awkward asking about it, it's better to ask about it than end up with the consequences later. So being awkward is just part and parcel when it comes to expressing boundaries, because talking can feel quite awkward. But the more clear communication you have between you, your friends, your partners, the better idea you have of what makes everyone happy and comfortable and safe. And the same for you. If they know what makes you feel happy and comfortable and safe, that can really strengthen your relationship with other people. And people that don't respect your boundaries are not people you want to be engaging with, because you never know when they will put you in an unsafe situation, and at some point that can end up in a very dangerous situation. Okay, so now when you're out and about or you're anywhere, even at the workplace, just in the back of your mind, keep safety in mind. Have the details of security or staff, or HR, so on. Make sure that you have someone you can call when you're out in the middle of the night, like if there's friends or family, or maybe you just need a taxi service that you know very well, you know. And for situations that you feel have gotten to a point where it's very dangerous, make sure that you have saved on your phone some emergency contact details. It's just important to have safety in mind, because some people do not react well to boundary setting. Some people are just not safe people in the first place. It doesn't happen very often, but in the small percentages of times that it does, I would just like everyone to be aware of them. Okay, one difficult topic to the next. How do we deal with someone crossing someone else's boundary? So let's say you're at this party and you see a guy hitting on a girl and she's not very comfortable, and you can see that. So let's say this guy that's hitting on the girl is a close friend of yours. Now, if you approach him and you say, "Hey dude, this is not cool, she's uncomfortable, leave her alone," you can judge the reaction of your friend and how the quality of your friendship will stay if he decides to ignore you or this girl. Do you think he is a very good friend if he ignores your boundaries? I don't think so. Do you think he's a good friend if he's ignoring someone else's boundaries? I don't think so. So if they decide to not change, that is a very clear indicator that this person is not going to be someone you can trust to be safe around. So the other part of this is we are not always aware of other people's boundaries. We are not always aware of what makes people feel happy or comfortable. And sometimes some things can happen so quickly in the moment, and we only realize it later that, hey, actually, that made me feel uncomfortable. When it comes to intermingling cultures, it's very, very difficult to be aware and open to other cultures. And it's unfortunate, but everyone is a tiny bit racist. But to be aware of it and to correct the behavior, it's a good idea to speak up to your friends and be like, "Hey, that joke you made the other day, I actually think it's insensitive, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't make it again." You can come back later and state how you feel and what you think was wrong about it, and they can change their course of action. It's very difficult to always be aware of these things, and I'm sure there have been things that you found very funny when you were younger, only to realize, like, dang, that is an awful joke. I don't want to make that again. I don't want to make that mistake again. So when you come back later, we have this racist joke, and you want to call them out, you don't make assumptions about them. Like, if they have said something that might be a little bit racist, don't go and call them horrible names. Don't say that you are such a racist person or whatever. You want to call out the behavior. You don't want to call them out. You don't want to make them feel awful. You want them to correct the behavior. So you want them to not say the joke anymore. You don't want to completely demoralize them and make them feel like a horrible human being. You want to give them the opportunity to learn and grow. It's very difficult in a very multicultural environment, and in the world that we are increasingly intermingling with other people, it's very difficult to know what is and what isn't okay or comfortable. So just be aware that you can do it in the moment, but you can also do it when you've done some self-reflection or had some time to process everything. So yeah, I think it's really good that we can have these discussions and dialogues with our friends and be like, hey, this upset me the other day. Is it cool if we don't do that again? And then you can see how that shifts. A really good friend will take